and welcome to everyone. My name is Amy Bauer. I am the managing principal and co-founder of CA Search Advisors. We are an executive search firm focused on the real estate industry. Today's On the Case is focused on innovative technology in the real estate industry. And we are excited to have Alexandra Nicoletti joining us today from Camber Creek Capital. Alexandra and I met about a year ago, and she has spent her career in real estate private equity, mainly in acquisitions and asset management. And she joined Camber Creek in 2010. I keep wanting to say 2024, it's 2010. We are excited to talk to you about the innovative technology platforms that Camber Creek has. Camber Creek is an investment firm focused on driving innovation in the real estate industry across asset classes. And it's making significant investments in technology. Some of those examples are technology platforms that assist landlords and tenants with rents, or help companies manage marketing data or project costs. And that's, their major statement is building innovation together, which I think is a great statement. So Alexandra, if you wouldn't mind sort of fleshing out Camber Creek's mission statement and your role with the team, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely, Amy. Big thank you for having me. Very excited to talk about this topic. It's my day in and day out. So so excited to get into it. So I'm a partner at Camber Creek. We are a venture capital firm. We invest in real estate technology companies. We've been investing in the space for the last decade plus. We manage today nearly $1 billion in AUM across a family of funds. We are focused on investing in companies that solve real pain points within the real estate industry across asset classes and geographies, which we'll get into in a little bit. My background, Amy, as you mentioned, prior to Camber, was in real estate private equity. I started my career at Goldman Sachs and then spent nearly a decade investing in brick and mortar real estate, first with Apollo Global Management, investing out of their closed-end funds, followed that with several years at a large sovereign, helping build their real estate holdings here in the US. We deployed more than $1 billion over the span of 4 or 5 years. And then also spent a period of time at Brookfield prior to joining Camber Creek. Really all that to say, I was a user of a lot of the technology out there. The tools, I would say, were very limited, and even in the short 5-10 years have evolved quite significantly. One of the things that excites me about Camber Creek and really our approach to investing is, I would characterize it, we're grounded in the way we approach our investment themes. They're largely shaped by pain points that we frequently hear from real estate professionals in the industry. And maybe to put it really simply, the way we think about an investment is this tool solving a real world problem, and can it solve that real world problem at scale?
Okay, wonderful. So the overarching theme that we discussed is innovative technology focused on the real estate industry, which is Camber Creek's focus. In what areas are you seeing a lot of innovation right now?
Great question. I would say we've got about 4 main investment themes. So I'll touch on some of those, and then I do want to circle back and talk about our approach to investing as well. So, to touch on some of the themes that we're focused on, number one, workflow and operational tools. So, this can really apply to any job function across the real estate industry. But the idea is, what routine tasks am I doing, or is your team doing day to day, that really at the end of the day should be automated to free up their time to do higher value activity? And that can look like anything from, on-site leasing teams, having to manage communication with leasing prospects, automating that so leasing teams can really spend their time doing those higher touch activities, touring folks through the property, converting them, closing and signing leases. Do other things like, which we'll talk about, pet compliance at properties and things like that. The second is ESG and climate tech. I think this is a topic that's kind of been it's on the hot seat for a while now, but the built world still has a long way to go with this. 40% of carbon emissions come from the built world. And so we invest in companies like Measurable, which help real estate owners access and mitigate the environmental impact of their building. The idea being you can't act on an initiative, you can't even measure, sort of your starting baseline. And then companies also like Arcadia, which are helping real estate owners access clean energy. The third, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but and it is a broad theme, but data and AI, with the widespread adoption and access to a lot of these AI, what we call large language models, it's really opened the doors to, particularly in real estate, where so much data is housed, is proprietary, and is in what we call an unstructured form. So it's in it's in documents that are, unreadable. They're not, it's not clean data necessarily. Well, using some of these AI tools really lets you access a lot of that previously almost dormant data and put it at your fingertips. And that's, I think one of the exciting things for us on the technology side. And then the fourth is business model innovation. And that can look like, how do I transform or operate real estate flexibly? The core thesis being, can I use technology to deliver a higher yield on my real estate, and whether that's through better operations or different ways to really boost top line revenue, all that's going to flow through down to NOI.
So what is Camber Creek's approach to investing? Talk to us a little bit about your approach.
Yeah. So, great question. And I'm glad we're circling back to that, because it's one of the things that when I joined, got me really excited about the firm, and really resonated with me, particularly coming from a real estate background, which, we engage quite closely with our network in the real estate space. Our limited partners across our funds, are real estate organizations. So, spanning everything from large public REITs to private real estate operators across asset classes, across geographies. And so, we engage them in our investment process. And, the next question is, so what does that look like? When we are, deeply looking, diligencing a company and deep into the investment process with a prospective investment, we tap what we call our beta lab, which we sort of coined the term, but it's a group of, highly engaged LPs, who we bring in, who could be potential customers for the technology that we're looking at. We introduce them to the company. Oftentimes they will actually pilot the technology across a handful of assets. We get that real-time feedback in the middle of our diligence process. And from an actual prospective user, helps us better underwrite the investment, also helps us de-risk the investment ultimately. And in a lot of cases helps us win better deal terms as well, because founders want to work with us. They want access to our network in the real estate space. They see how we can be a partner to them also, in navigating a lot of just challenges that come with selling into the built world. I would say the other approach that we bring is, really prioritizing bringing technology to our limited partners in our network, where we believe that technology is going to have an outsized impact or positive ROI to their underlying holdings, their core business, their real estate portfolio. And that's regardless of if we're invested or not. We sort of view this as, can we foster an ecosystem here? Sort of a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And so, to just maybe to speak to our partnership model and this ecosystem creation of really fostering trust, is important to us, particularly when, like I sat on the other side of the table as well. And I'm sure a lot of folks out there, have had this experience. You get so many technology platforms kind of knocking on your door, And it's really hard to kind of parse through some of that noise if you're not focused on it. And that's where we can come in and really act as boots on the ground partners for our real estate LPs to frankly cut through a lot of that noise and surface the best in class solutions where we say, hey, we think this can have a really an outsized impact.
Wonderful. So you touched on the hot topic, of course, which is AI. So kind of a three-pronged question here. What does AI truly mean? Because there's just so much in the news, so many issues at schools, and you're hearing just all these things about AI. So what does AI really mean? How does it affect the real estate industry? How is it being used in the real estate industry? And then kind of my third question about AI would be, if I was a chief technology officer, a CEO, a leadership team, where would I even start with AI? Because it can be incredibly overwhelming. And of course, there's so much noise around it. So where do you even start?
Yes, great question. I love the where can you start, because I'll circle back to that. But I think people the tendency is try and tackle too many things at once. And my advice is always start very small, very easy. But to touch on Amy, your first question, what is AI? Maybe at risk of oversimplifying, AI is really the ability to ingest large amounts of data, so both structured and unstructured data, and generate predictions or recommendations based off of that data, but also specifically optimized to your goals or organization's goals and preferences or parameters. We're still very much at the beginning of AI in general, and AI adoption, despite the technology actually being around since the 60s. A lot of what's transpired over the last year and a half. I'm now, you're right, we're in 2020, end of 2024 into 2025. But the step function change that we've seen over the last 18 months has really been the introduction of the ChatGPTs of the world, these large language models that have come out and made access to AI tools readily available to the wider public. That being said, we're still, very much in early innings. I would say where we're seeing the most application for real estate and even adoption in the early days right now is across a couple of specific areas. I would say the first is enterprise data management. So kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier, Amy, which is you've got all of this, really frankly, siloed data, isn't integrated, doesn't talk to each other, is housed probably, in PDF documents, or in certain cases, even physical documents, and being able to do things like feed all of that information to a platform, and then being able to query, ask it a question. Hey, we're looking at diligencing a multifamily deal, for example. And I'm just making up an example here. In suburban Atlanta. Tell me where, pulling from, the deal documents that I have, that I've amassed over the last 2 years, where, can you pull all of the comps from those documents and send them to me and show them in a chart, right? Something that would take probably an analyst on the team, an hour or 2 hours to put together, you could do in a matter of seconds. So, things like that were just more easily accessing the data that you already have, and being able to give your team really a tool to just leverage and do their day-to-day more efficiently. The second is workflow automation tools. So, I would say on the investment side, again, to use that example, we're seeing like companies like a Keyway, where they do a lot of that data document management, but they will also then pull data from publicly available sources, clean the data. So comp data, rent data, for example, they'll clean all that rent data, they'll normalize it, and they'll tell you how they're doing it. So I think one of the knocks on AI, right, is that it's sort of this black box. You'll find that and what we found is the best companies can very clearly explain their methodology, which I think most of real estate really still wants to have that. Have that control. They'll explain their methodology, get you comfortable with how they're doing it, even do it in a way that aligns with your internal practices, which I think is really interesting, being able to sort of, again, optimize it to your parameters. And then the third is, around in real estate operations management. This is, very broad, but think, any kind of like boots on the ground, on-site teams, whether that's leasing, maintenance, et cetera. Any routine activities that they're doing that's ripe for automation. And I used the leasing example before, but chat, and because we now have these generative AI tools where that lends itself very cleanly to any type of chat function where you're communicating with a prospect or an existing resident, and it's sort of routine follow-up. But what's great now about AI is that you can customize a lot of that communication to your residents and specifically. And so if resident in 4E has 2 dogs, you can specifically send that resident communication about a pet event without having to blast it across the entire building. And so to me, that's like the exciting opportunity here is the conversational element, but it really does feel personalized. So I know some of the knock is, well, are we just gonna, is it just gonna feel like a robot is talking to me all the time? And no, I think the opportunity is really to deliver more hospitality and bring more hospitality into operations, which I think is very exciting.
You've talked a little bit about and touched on some of the technologies in your portfolio, but it would be great. And we've also talked about they run the gamut across from, working with tenants and landlords on rental fees to everything from construction labor costs to my favorite. You just kind of touched on it a few minutes ago, is the pet screening platform. Can you dig into a couple of examples in your portfolio that you're investing in now?
Yeah, absolutely. And Amy, before I do that, I do want to answer the where do I start with AI question?
Yes, I apologize. Yes, yes, please answer the third piece. Yes.
In 2 words, I would say, because we got off on a tangent, but in 2 words, I would say
started with it. Now we're circling back, so I apologize.
I would say start small, right? The smaller, the better, and the easier, the better. And then I would say that's really to get teams comfortable with this idea of using any AI tool. And so what I always say is anybody can use ChatGPT, go to ChatGPT, yes. Have ChatGPT write an email response to somebody, or incorporate it have it draft a press release for you. Obviously being sensitive to confidential data and all of those caveats. But, again, start really small and have teams start to incorporate it into their almost daily or weekly workflow. And I would say that's where we found the most success as those teams become, and as people become a little bit more savvy on how do I really use this tool, it gets them really excited to adopt a real estate specific platform also.
Well, even for a small team, just like Katie and I at CA Search Advisors, using something like ChatGPT to enhance messaging, right? So we write the basics, so it's still our message, but it's almost like having a professor then grade your paper.
Exactly.
And say, this is how you can make it a little bit better, So that's, like you said, starting small is great. It still captures your voice, but just enhances it a bit. And that's what's been really neat about just using it as a small company and a small business. So I love that approach of starting small. So thank you for sharing that. And again, and I apologize for cutting off earlier on that piece, circling back to just some great examples of some of the technologies that you're seeing.
Yeah, so I'll touch on the fun one first, pet screening. So pet screening works with multifamily managers. They help apartment buildings manage service animal requests. So when a resident moves in with a service animal or a pet, pet screening takes the onus off of on-site teams from having to verify those service animal documents. They do it all themselves at no cost to the property. And then they also help buildings manage their pet policies. So, breed restrictions, size, weight restrictions, and other things. And they really take, again, all of that onus off of the leasing teams who really don't want to be saddled with that risk and that time. So today, pet screening works with over 4 million units in the multifamily space. And they're doing some really interesting things with moving into vacation rentals and outside of just pure multifamily. Another example of one of our portfolio companies is a company called Built Rewards. They are a payments and residence reward platform. So you think about a resident, any renters, monthly expenses. Rent is usually their number one largest expense, which historically has you received no rewards. You think about all of your other spend, you're mostly getting rewarded through any one of your various credit cards for that spend, be it travel, dining, groceries, etc. But rent, you're not getting rewarded for. And oftentimes you actually get charged a fee for paying your rent on a credit card. What Built has done is now unlock the ability to pay rent on a credit card, but beyond that, offer rewards back to residents for their largest monthly expense, and they're able to spend the rewards on really interesting things like travel, dining experience, etc. Today, so Built launched 3 years ago. They have over 2.5 million members today on the platform, and again, they're doing some really interesting things with resident incentives and how to use their rewards platform to incentivize resident behavior. So a lot more I could talk about there, but I'll sort of leave it at that. And then maybe I'll give one more example because I think this one is very interesting as well. Notarize, our portfolio company, Notarize, which is now called Proof, but they were the first company to bring notarization online. Big tailwind and catalyst for them was obviously the pandemic when everything shut down, but people still wanted to buy cars, close on their homes, etc. Things that needed notaries. During the pandemic, they grew revenue by something like over 700% that first year. Obviously, that comes with a lot of challenges with an early stage company growing that quickly. But they've done a phenomenal job navigating and are in a really interesting position now, just around identity management and verification. Also,
yeah. That's an interesting point because as somebody who actually was in the process of selling our father-in-law's house at the pandemic and literally sold it and closed on it the Sunday. And we're told, like, before everything shuts down, everything is shutting down on Monday. So everything needs to be signed by Sunday or you can't get anything done. And we don't know when it will open back up. That would have been very,
yes.
Yeah, I can understand how that has just come to be such a refreshing addition because it was just an absolute terror to try to get that done before the world shut down. And it was probably going to shut down on Monday. And sure enough, it did. So thankfully we got it closed, but that would have definitely eased the time frame and been very helpful in getting things signed.
And title companies are one of Notarize's big customer base. So, the interesting thing is, the pandemic really spurred a lot of that adoption, but, post pandemic, I think we still, are very much in the world of, this is the more efficient way to do business. Yeah. So and that's been, I think that's been positive coming out of it.
Well, one of my main areas of focus in executive search is, of course, healthcare and seniors housing. So have you seen some platforms that would really benefit those sectors, those asset classes?
Yes, and I'm excited to talk about this because it's an area that I've been spending more time in from the technology side, and I think there's a lot of opportunity from the technology side also. I've heard recently the average senior living, and I don't know if this is true, so I probably folks listening can check me on it, but I heard that the average senior living community requires 30 different point solutions most to operate, and most of them are antiquated. They haven't been really innovated on, and none of them talk to each other, right? And so you've got a lot of siloed data, you've got a lot of siloed tools that on-site teams have to then use, and that creates tremendous pressure for them to not only do their day job, but also manage all these various systems that don't communicate with each other. So some of the areas that we've been interested in on the technology side, and where we're seeing a number of companies really pop up and innovate. I would say there's 5 or 6 kind of areas. The first being resident engagement and experience, and I think sort of shifting the narrative, I think to help shift the narrative on senior housing, on how can we really create a great experience for our residents from a quality of life and from a health standpoint. And so, I think the old narrative is when you move into a community, the expectation is, well, it's just sort of steady decline. I think the new narrative should really be in what we're seeing, with the right sort of monitoring tools is plateau. And even in certain cases, when you go from no care to a lot of dedicated care, you could even see a small uptick and then plateau. And I think that's the really exciting opportunity to be able to engage with these residents and create a better experience for them. And that can also look like on the other side of the spectrum in sort of more independent living communities, really just better offering, more fulsome offering that's really tailored to what residents in that specific community want. Another area is that, I'm interested in is prospect nurturing. And a lot of times a community will meet the resident for the first time when there is a need, i.e. there's an event or they're coming out of the hospital. Right. And so is there an opportunity to really start to develop a relationship with your residents before that event or that need really occurs? We see that a lot in the multifamily space, just to pull from another asset class. And so, I think there are some parallels there. Can you start to, foster those relationships earlier on, and nurture the funnel, so to speak. Another area is fall detection and prevention. Companies like Safely You and Inspirin are out there. They're doing some really interesting things to advance fall detection and also help on-site teams just manage and detect and with less resources, which is kind of the big one, especially with a lot of the staffing pain points. Another is payments. More broadly, I think something like less than 10% of residents or families across most communities pay online today. So a lot of that is still being done by physical check. Yep. And if you talk to any Gen Z person, that would, I think, probably blow their mind. I don't know if any of them even own a checkbook. I was working in the communities. I remember the Dropbox. There was a Dropbox. Residents could drop their monthly. So I'm excited to see how that evolves as well. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there, particularly as, the residents themselves, we enter the next generation and the families also are really the technology generation and have grown up with technology. And then I'm covering a lot here, but I'm excited about it. So, and then I would say, the last area that, we're really focused on is compliance and staffing. I mean, staffing and labor is, from what we've heard, the number one pain point across communities. And there's, some early stage companies like Fara and others that are really kind of tackling that from different angles. Perfect. So again, we're in 2024, looking at 2025 and 2026. I just want to get the dates right.
Camber Creek, on your website, you say empowering what's next. So what are some of the exciting themes that you're excited about, some of the things that you're looking forward to in 2025 and 2026?
Great question. I'm excited to see a lot more innovation driven by now this widespread access to AI. I think, even though that's being talked about quite a bit, I think there's still a lot of low hanging fruit that can be addressed, particularly in the real estate industry. And I'm excited to see see it touching more roles across the real estate space too. And so, I think if we look forward, 2, 5, 10 years, to some extent, every role up and down the organization is going to have some type of AI tool that you use weekly, if not daily. And so, kind of taking a step. So where are we today? We've seen most of the application really, I would say, come out for on-site teams, but I think that will start, and we've already seen it starting to expand. And so I'm very excited to see that. And then, the other area, very excited to do more and see more in the senior housing and healthcare space. I think there's tremendous opportunity there for all the reasons that we just talked about, Amy. And I am excited to, really, I think there's an opportunity to deliver. Right, because you've got hospitality, a restaurant, and a hospital wrapped up into one building, and it's a very unique asset class. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, if someone who is watching this webinar says, "My gosh, some of this stuff sounds fantastic. I would love to learn more," who should they get in contact with at Camber Creek?
Me, love to talk to folks. I love talking about this. Please feel free to reach out. Maybe Amy can share my contact information. Please reach out.
Yeah, so we will definitely do that. We will actually include contact information for you. Perfect. We will do that, as well as for CA Search Advisors. So if people watching this are interested in getting in touch with either company, they can do that. We'll include contact information at the end of the webinar. So thank you very, very much, Alexandra, for joining me today and for talking through this exciting technology. And we hope that everyone who's watching this is excited too about the upcoming technology and about the current technology out there, and finds this fascinating. And thank you all for watching. So again, Alexandra, thank you. Thank you everyone for watching, and goodbye.
Thank you.